Welcome back to the channel, guys. Self Educated Economist. And as a disclaimer, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and you're responsible for all of your financial decisions. So today it is December 12th, 2025. And there's a lot of, at least I've been seeing a lot of stuff on social media talking about, I'm in Europe right now and talking about the rollout of the European Central Bank digital currency, which is planned to be fully rolled out in 2029. And I believe not next year, I think 2027 is a pilot. I think 2026 they're going to have like some parliamentary ruling on to whether they're going to actually move forward with it, which they probably are going to. 2027 is going to be a pilot, and 2029 will be the full rollout of it. So essentially they're going to try to eliminate cash for the large part. And I don't see this necessarily as a bad or a good thing. I mean, it's a bad, well, let me rephrase that. I think it's a bad thing in terms of like, there's aspects of it that can be bad in terms of like, your privacy and like how they could track all of your, I mean, they could already track a lot of your, what it is that you're doing, but it just makes it a lot easier for government and the powers that be to be able to track your movements and what it is that you're doing. And they're definitely going to want to track if you're making any money in crypto, and that way they could be able to tax you accordingly, because as these financial, not financial institutions, but as these governments become more and more bankrupt, they're going to want more and more of your money, and that's just how it works, unfortunately. With that being said, going digital, at least digital in a crypto sense, is absolutely necessary, especially getting rid of physical cash. And I got this too a lot from the Uneducated Economist, which I kind of got his name from, my YouTube channel's name from. Got that idea from him. His channel's fantastic. I highly recommend you guys checking him out. But anyways, he talked about how essentially central banks need to take interest rates into negative territory in order to avoid deflation or a deflationary effect. And he goes deep into this stuff. He's obviously a lot more knowledgeable than me on this specific subject matter. But to me, it makes a lot of sense, right? Mainly because in order to have more than 2% inflation, you need to have a lot of velocity in the money supply. So money needs to be exchanging hands very rapidly. And right now, it's not, I believe it's not happening as fast as it once did back in like, the 1980s, 1990s, etc., right? Where you can have a lot more, what's the word I'm looking, sorry, let me start it again. You have a lot more acceleration in so money exchanging hands very rapidly, and this is what is another aspect that creates a lot of inflation. It's not only just the amount of money that's in circulation. Yes, that does create some level of inflation, but just think of it this way: if the central bank prints out a bunch of money and they buy a bunch of treasuries and they hand it over to the government, for example, if the government doesn't spend that money into the economy, you're not going to create inflation. So inflation needs to be moving hands rapidly. And right now that's not happening. And a big part of that is because the consumer is debt saturated. They can't take out any more loans. They're going more into in a large part into a savings. If they can, they're trying to save money, and they're trying to save in their currency, in this case the euro, or if you're in the United States, the dollar, if you're in Canada, the Canadian dollar, etc., right? So you need this aspect. You need velocity in your money supply in order to have a higher amount of inflation. If this doesn't happen, you're not going to. And central banks, their number one fear is deflation, right? This is literally their number one fear, because when you have deflation, there is no growth in the economy. And when you have a debt-based economy, which we do have globally, you need inflation. And without it, the system will collapse within itself, right? No one will be able to pay anything. People aren't taking out loans to grow businesses. People lose jobs. And actually, funny enough, in that situation, the currency actually starts to gain value. So it's a weird situation to be in. But I think in this situation, it will create a lot of short-term, even to medium-term pain. But I don't know. I think this is something that should be allowed to happen. It's not going to happen if the powers that be have any say in trying to prevent this from happening, they will, because they have a lot at stake at stake for them not to lose their current hold that they have in the economic system, right? Because if deflation were to happen, it would cause a lot of ruckus throughout the world. The world would change drastically. It'd be the biggest thing that ever happened, like probably in like the last 100+ years. So they're and trust me, they're not, they don't want to do this because it's for the goodness of their own heart. They want to maintain their control that they have over this world. You know what I mean? So their interest is not to let the deck of cards to crumble, the house of cards to crumble. They want to keep the ball rolling, and they want to keep their power in place. So yeah, so that's a big part of the digital currency. In this case, the Euro Central Bank digital currency, and it's going to be rolled out in other places too. Maybe in the United States they just use something like Tether, which will kind of have a similar effect. You eventually start getting rid of cash, and you just have these digital dollars floating around, and it allows a central bank to go into negative territory. Because if you have money, for example, and you have it in the system, they could say that, hey, like, you need to spend this money or else it's going to disappear after a certain amount of time, right? They could make it be, they could probably, well, they probably can't. I'm sure they could program it where it has an expiry date, that you have to spend this currency within this amount of time. So you're forced to make transactions. And every person that receives that currency has that like time limit set on it, that you have X amount of time to spend this money. And they could even say what you can and cannot spend the money on. But forget that part. Just literally just focus on the part that says that you have a time limit. So this forces velocity in the money supply. So imagine that's happening on a global stage. So the central bank could actually go into negative territory. So if you literally hold the money for too long, you have to pay them. It's really strange to think about. You have to pay the bank to hold your money. I guess they already do that, but they're essentially you wouldn't be able to invest it, right? So I hope I'm explaining that right, and I'll probably go back to this a lot because it's kind of like a complicated subject matter, and it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around how something like this could even function. But I think that's kind of like where they want to go, is really take into negative territory, keep inflation running super hot for a extended period of time, and essentially keep the ball rolling. And who knows, maybe they'll be able to do it. I don't know. I really don't know. But it's something to ponder. And yeah, those are my initial thoughts on this subject matter. If you like the content, I don't know why I keep saying the contact. If you're liking the content, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you think I'm wrong, if you like what I'm saying, let me know in the comments. If I'm completely off the marker and don't know what I'm talking about, let me know that in the comments. Anyways, I'll see you guys soon. Take care and see you next time.